Hello, everybody. So, yeah, our session is about increasing the lifetime value of users. First, I guess we can let each guest introduce themselves briefly, who they are, what app they are publishing, and what business model they have with their apps, which is relevant for this panel. First with Nikki.
Thank you, Jan. So Infinity Levels is incorporated in Singapore, but our operation is based in Thailand. We are about 20 people, manpower company. Our specialties is in freemium games. Our first mobile game was featured on WWDC in San Francisco about 3 years ago. And after that, we've been continuously producing high quality mobile game. There's a new one coming out this month called Blades of Revenge. And we are very excited to be integrating a lot of user engagement in this game. And I'm happy to share about it later on.
Good morning, guys. I'm Lam You Teck, so I'm the head of performance marketing at HotelQuickly. So my job, so before that, so HotelQuickly, we offer last-minute hotel booking rooms to travelers who are sort of need to travel spontaneously, or you just need a room because your flight is sort of like missed or delayed itself. So my job is to actually grow the user base itself, actively trying to get as many users as possible, and also try to activate them such that they can become a customer quickly. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kate. I work for Product Madness. Product Madness publishes social casino apps, and I'm senior product marketing manager for Harder Vegas, which is one of the top social casino apps on Facebook and mobile. And we're a freemium model.
Hi, I'm Chris Steedman. I'm MD for M&C Saatchi Mobile across Asia Pacific. So we're coming from a different perspective. We're obviously an agency. We represent a lot of different apps across different categories, different markets, and some of these will have freemium models, some will be e-commerce. And we focus on kind of the acquisition, retention, and overall mobile app strategies for brands in the mobile app space.
Okay, so I guess the first thing we ought to do is to define lifetime value, in case there's anybody here who's not familiar with the term. It is the gross revenue that you will get from one user from the first time he starts using the application to the last time he uses it. So how much revenue one user will bring you in the lifetime of usage of the application. And the important point is that this is something that gets estimated. You don't know it in advance. You can just take a guess. But as you know, in the mobile space, we have to acquire users, we have to advertise the application, we have to pay for traffic, and this is money we have to spend right away before we start earning anything. So it is very critical to be able to estimate the lifetime value properly in order to not buy users for more expensive than the money we can make out of them. So I guess the first question will be, how do you estimate lifetime value? What metrics and what process do you use? Who wants to start on that?
Okay, I can go first. So from a mobile game perspective, we usually do soft launch first in many countries. For example, in Thailand, in Canada, Australia, and Scandinavian countries, for example. During the soft launch period, so you normally have like 3 to 6 months, depending on how long you want it to go on for. And during this period of time, you would start acquiring user, right? So you will have some data, at least 10,000 people that you can extrapolate on. And based on this, then if your number are good enough, then you can do a proper launch and acquire user on a bigger scale. So that's how I would normally do it. And it also depends a lot on features that you have in a game. During the soft launch period, sometimes you have new feature coming on all the time, so that would affect your LTV, of course. And different countries would have different LTV and different CPI, so that go into the calculation. It's very sensitive, so it's very mathematical, and there's a lot of sensitivity analysis that you should be doing. So that's my take on it.
So from HotelQuickly side, this is actually like the favorite question from my CFO. Every morning on the pantry, will ask me, hey, what's the LTV from performance marketing, right? And here we go again. And for HotelQuickly, it's very straightforward because basically we take a commission based on each of the room that we sold itself. So the way we calculate is always based on the net sort of commission that we receive based on the different markets that we operate in. Basically, we operate in almost all of APAC, and then we sort of factor in. So based on the 30 days, we first look at the 30 days sort of LTV in the sense itself, like, okay, so how much money are we making based on this different channel that these users are sort of coming from? And after that, once we sort of have a base calculation around that, then we model it for further. It's between 12 to 24 months for us because we are travel vertical. It's not like for games or for the other sort of e-commerce app where users make a lot more frequent purchase itself. So we base that calculation upon that itself. Okay, based on 30 days LTV, this is the conversion, this is the net output that we're taking, and then we factor model it into a 12-month period based on assumption that the frequency of the purchase that this user is going to make, and then we sort of build that calculation around that itself. And that's for the e-commerce, rather straightforward way to look at it. But for us, because we also have the invite mechanism to it, so what we do essentially, we also monitor what's the referral rate from this particular user that brought in, and subsequently what's the additional revenue they're bringing in itself, and then we sort of factor it in itself. We don't look at it at the hard numbers, but then we do consider like, okay, maybe like this particular group of users did not actually make a purchase, but if some of the friends that they invited, then it could be interesting for us as well. So, yeah.
So you have retention, engagement, and monetization metrics, and all of them drive your LTV. So the way we do it in Product Madness is we use probabilistic model to try to predict the retention, monetization metrics, and then we project the LTV 1 or 2 years out, depending on the region and the product. So for example, you're launching a new ad using an ad partner, and you're acquiring users in Bangkok. So 7 days later, you can look at this cohort and see what their retention metrics were, whether they've paid. And using the model that you've built previously, you can use those numbers and the data, and the model will hopefully spit out the LTV for the next 2 years. So that's how we calculate it. Just a simple example.
I think just to highlight, I think everyone, those three answers are similar but very different in many ways. I think every advertiser, every product will have a different way of approaching it just because their business models are different, because of the markets they're in. So I think it's just very important to understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all situation with LTV. You've got some clients who will look over they'll only see their returns after a 3-month period, some will see it over 7 days. So it's very important to understand that, it doesn't necessarily, what one brand or advertiser says isn't going to fit across the board. And that's really important to highlight. You need to own your own business, and for each business that will change. More changes to your app will probably affect your LTV, or new products, or as it changes, your LTV could change. The more data you see, the LTV metrics can change over time. So just bear that in mind, because what everyone's doing today could well change next month, or the month after that. So it's not just something which we're saying today will be the case. It can change all the time. It's very dynamic. Brothers.
1, 2, yeah, this one sounds much better. Okay, that was actually my question, because I heard, okay, we're projecting the LTV in 2 years, but actually the business sector is moving so fast. Is there any way to have an accurate projection on such a long period of time? Or do we have to consider the lifetime value on smaller periods?
I think from HotelQuickly perspective, we look at it as shorter frequency itself.
Yeah.
Purely because it's a very competitive business, and we don't have a lot of time to say, hey, let's wait for 3 years for this user to become profitable itself. So that's why from an acquisition point of view, right, always within the first 30 days, we have an expectation of these are the sort of conversion rate that we're looking, which we believe would help us drive into profitability in the next 6 to 12 months.
So you're saying that your definition of LTV is how much I can expect from the user in the next 30 days?
we look at it as the first, like the first signal point that, okay, we can invest in this itself. If it doesn't have any interesting numbers for us, like, we know that they're probably not going to convert really well down the funnel.
Okay.
Just to add on to that, I think, the actual lifetime value is still unknown for a lot of app developers. They're still working that out. 2 years is a bloody long time. So it's something that time a business can start up and just crash in that time. So it's, I think to You Teck's point, it's over that 30-day example, you're just looking for indicators so you can help predict what will be over the next 2 years as best you possibly can, because it's still unknown. I mean, that released in the last year, it's still a long way to go to understand, because you've got a segment of users who are high value and may be with you may not leave you, as long as you're still going and everything. So it's really hard to predict over a period of time, but it's important just to have those indicators which kind of highlight how you do identify those high value users early on.
Yeah.
With infinity levels, we tend to do it for 90 days.
90 days.
And usually we do it only that long because there's a lot of games coming out this day and people get churned up a lot. So to have a very long LTV just doesn't make sense for the game in general. But what we tend to do is, like, after we see that the users starting to drop off, just before they drop off, we try to drive them to the next game so that we don't lose these people that we acquire in the first place.
Okay, yeah, as Chris mentioned, indeed there are different profiles of users. Some users, probably a majority of users in some businesses will never earn you any money. That's the case in games, I would imagine. But there's a minority of users in general that will earn you a lot of your revenue. So how do you, particularize the user experience for those users, or how do you segment your user base, in fact, in order to improve the LTV in general, depending on users' behavior?
I can take that. So we use a few models to try to predict the future value of those people, and we use the third-party analytical companies that try to determine that. And so we would have a model that would look at the payments on the first day and then take historical data and see how did these people pay after, say, 30 days. And then we would use a more sophisticated predictive model, and we realized that the one that was more sophisticated delivered better results. So what we could do is we could say, okay, after the first day, we have the segment of users that we think 50% of them are likely to become whales. And our theory is that whales are not made, they're born. So the only thing you need to do is to ensure that the experience that these people have is the best possible. And you have to find the pain points and try to remove them from the equation, right? So in order to measure whether we're successful at that, we would launch a lot of A/B tests. So if we have a feature, it would be A/B tested. If we have a marketing campaign or a lifecycle campaign, it would be A/B tested. So say 50% of your installs are exposed to a certain experience on day 0 versus the other 50% who are not. And then 30 days or 7 days or whatever, how long it takes, you look how those people converted, how much they've paid. So that's how we ensure that through all these tests, we increase the LTV. So it's a lot of testing through product and marketing.
Okay, one question relating to that, actually. You mentioned A/B testing, which I guess it is good to perform on a large group of maybe unidentified users to know what works best. But do you really want to do A/B testing with your whales, or are your whales too precious to mess up with them?
That's a good question. Also, in our business, we have a tiny, tiny portion of whales. So you could run your A/B test, and all the whales would end up in one group versus the other. So
right, yeah,
A/B
it's
testing,
not statistically significant.
Exactly. So when we run A/B tests, we don't really focus on the top whales. We look at valuable players. So say the ones who've paid more than $100. Right? And so what we would do, we would actually remove the whales from the equation when we analyze the A/B tests, because they can skew the results significantly. So we try to improve the experience, but we kind of take those people out. because they're born, they're not made. They'll pay regardless, unless they get churned because the experience was too awful or they had bugs. Or
Okay, that makes sense. Anybody else on this?
I can add. So we tend to go with real-time analytics here. So when people open the game for the first time, you don't want to be bombarding them with promotion, click here, red buttons, red badge here. So the notification should only come on at the right timing and to the right person. So for example, we have some users would play just before they go to bed. Some people would play it first thing in the morning. So we have to see what kind of user they are before we start sending them promotion as well. So studying real-time analytics become more important, and to engage them on real-time becomes starting to become very, very important, because retention, we live by retention. It's so expensive to acquire users these days. So once they get into our app, we have to know exactly what they're doing and when is the best time to give them the right promotion, or to move them on to another thing that we want to engage them in.
So yeah, if I understand properly, you would have you would collect the data on which time of the day they used to play and send them the notification on those times rather than on times that you have identified that they don't play?
Yeah, so it wouldn't be local notification, it would be real-time events.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? No?
For HotelQuickly, it's pretty straightforward. Depending on the X amount of bookings that a user made with us, they will have like different loyalty level itself. So like, for example, for a user who books like 10, who makes 10 bookings with us, they will have like the platinum VIP status itself. In our backend, we actually label them like these are the VIP users itself. And especially when they make a booking, our customer service team will actually try to make some upgrades for them along that way itself. And from marketing angle, we do try to run certain experiments to actually try to make them to make more frequent booking with us itself.
Okay. Chris, anything to add?
Just to add, I like the idea of kind of nurturing a whale. I think it's definitely a way you don't just find these big players or big bookers. You need to continually nurture them, give them have the right communication. So they continue to, because there's obviously so much competition out there. But also, I think what's important is, whilst the big whales actually can definitely help you in terms of, they're obviously quite proud to use your app probably on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So working with them to get feedback is really important. Use those whales to help you, because they're ones who are driving virality. They're telling their friends or their colleagues about your app. So get feedback from them. I think that definitely helps to help increase, find more high-value users.
You mean they can be like your trendsetters?
Well, they definitely are, but they can also provide you the feedback to improve the experience, because they're the ones who are the most robust testers you've got. So to work with them on that is really important, and reward them for it as well.
Yeah. Like, do any of you guys have, like, are any of you guys trying to build like more like personal relationship with each well? If a well is really worth it, like knowing them. I saw you probably understood the wrong thing. Yeah, which is easy to misunderstand actually now that I think about it. Well, but I mean, individual relationship, that's the right term, right?
I think the app experience is, the reason why people go to app is because of the personal experience. Because that's why you don't use mobile web, you use the app because you can provide them a lot of information to make it more personal. And so I think that comes naturally, but you can be more personal if you want to be.
Yeah. Because I mean, yeah, the meaning of my question was like, basically, I mean, we are like shop owners, like sellers. We have applications. We try to get money with them. And if a customer is really worth it, we can give them the sales pitch and give them the service, the personalized service. And are there some cases in which it makes sense to do that in the context of a mobile app?
Since the acquisition and retention costs are so high, we definitely make sure that our most valuable players have a separate channel to access customer support. So that's, in a way, really helping us to ensure that they don't leave the game and they're satisfied. And they obviously have better in-game perks, which are usually, you know, virtual currency and better sales, that kind of stuff. But they definitely do have a better personal assistance, so for sure.
Okay.
In our game studio, we actually don't use the term whale at all in anywhere that we talk about them. So we tend to go by the word high spender because we feel that, you know, we should be treating all these people that play game with dignity. And ever since I joined this industry a couple of years ago, I always find this term a little bit strange. So yeah, just the culture in our company. And sometimes when you say that, how do we treat the whale differently or high spender, I sometimes write to them personally just to see how can we make them enjoy the game better. But I mean, I don't actually suggest that people in every game studio do this, but I do enjoy, you know, getting in touch with our biggest fan to see where they are valuing our games, what features they'd like to see next, because this is the people that actually spend a couple of hours every day playing our game, and they probably spend more time in the game more than me. So it's really good insight to hear what they thought, what they're expecting. Some of them are so detailed that they went through into like all the calculation of how to get to the next level, which I was, you know, really impressed. So it's just nice sometimes to reach out to them and talk to some of these high spender.
Okay. On another topic, I think there's one thing that we all hate to receive. It's push notifications. But at the same time, as an app publisher, you are tempted to tell people, hey, come back to my app. So, but you have to do it, of course, in a way that doesn't bother the user, because, I mean, it's easier to make a miss than to make a hit in terms of sending it with the right message and at the right time. So how often and on what criteria would you use push notifications?
I'll take this one. So push notifications is actually a very big communication for us itself. And there's the transactional push where, you know, after a user make a booking, then they receive a push itself. And then subsequently, there's also the marketing push, whereby we send out like the weekend promotions. You know, we've sort of like 10% discount or something like that. Then we want to send a push to them and see how do they react. So that's the one-time push itself. And then we also have the card abandonment push itself, which we believe that it's not so intrusive, because we know that, you know, you're sort of interested to make a booking itself. It's just that you didn't. And for that particular push, we don't really limit the frequency rate for it. But for the promotional push, we typically put like a 12 hours frequency and see how does it work. So we're a little bit more adventurous in a sense that we will test the limit, and then we measure what's the uninstall or the unengagement rate or the disable push. And then we sort of monitor and adjust according to that itself.
Okay.
So Heart of Vegas was first of all Facebook application, and then we launched on mobile. So for us, it was quite a challenge to figure out how do we communicate with our players. Do we send them email, and if so, are they going to open it through their mobile? Do we send push? So push is just one of the channels we use to retain our players, and we could use simple heuristics such as when was the last time the person opened an app. Then we would use more of segmentation type stuff. So we would analyze, did this player prefer push or did this player prefer email? And we would kind of try to make sure that it's user-centric and not channel-centric, if it makes sense. So to answer your question, it depends on the player. If the player goes through push channel, we're going to send them push as often as they want. But obviously there is a limit, so we don't go above 3 messages a day. But you also have to keep...
That's a lot.
As long as they click on it, that's fine. And sometimes we would attach bonuses, so it encourages them to continue clicking. Mm-hmm. And also you have to keep in mind that our players in social casino space, they have 5 other apps or 10 other apps, and all of them are going to send push notifications. So for some players, it might be overwhelming. So you have to be very careful to make sure they don't uninstall your app because it's spammy. So have to be careful.
Okay.
Just to add, particularly when you're getting new users, just give the user the option to opt out if they want to. I think it's really important. It's a very powerful mechanic, but it can be very intrusive. So that's something, it builds the trust with the user straight from the off. So it's important to give them the option. And also, if you are updating your app, don't just switch it back on again, because that happens quite a bit. So, yeah.
So in a new game that is coming out for us this month, there's a section called Special Events. And in this session, when players compete in some of these events, they will get special characters. What we do is we put in a tick box for them. So every time this event starts, they will get notification if they really want to participate in that event. And it's a good reminder for them, and this is something that they opt in themselves. We're not pushing it to them, but because they're valuing this event, that's why they are ticking the box to get this notification.
So yeah, it means for each kind of event, you would require opt-in, in fact, before spamming them. Okay. Okay, and then another topic. We have about 5 minutes left. Special offers, discounts, etc., free buys that are limited in time, essentially. Well, they would work differently on different kinds of apps. The good point being that they can create a sense of urgency and convince users to buy because it's now or never. The bad point being that as the sense of urgency is artificially created and people know that, it can somehow turn them off. That's what it does to me, actually. Another bad point being that if you do it too often, like Candy Crush, okay, I can miss this promotion because tomorrow there will be another almost identical promotion anyway. So what is the right frequency and the right approach to have these promotions and these time-limited events to try to drive extra value?
So when we look at our competitors, we notice very different behavior. Some companies would do sale every other day, others would do every week. We are actually very conservative with our promotions, and it's been working well for us. So you just position yourself differently. So think Apple, how often does Apple have sales? Maybe once a year. How often does Gap have sales? Pretty much every season. So you kind of have to think about it from a branding standpoint. So our sales are very infrequent, probably 2 times a month, maybe 3, but not more than that. As far as other sales, we would use life cycle type stuff. So when are you likely to make a purchase? When you need more currency, right? So if you are low on coins or your balance, whatever you're using in your app, if you're low, then it makes sense to show you something that would prompt you to make a purchase. And we do a lot of testing around that. So we would test how often to show it. We A/B test pretty much everything. So how often to show it, what price points to use, are we trying to upsell you, testing different discounts. So I suggest you do a lot of testing for that, because another interesting thing is that in our company we use control groups. So we would allocate certain group of people that never sees any promotions, and then over time we measure the uplift that marketing campaigns create, and it's quite substantial.
For us, I believe that people will only spend when they value something. So no matter what promotion you give to them, if you don't give it to them at the right time, and also it's something that they actually value, they will not spend. So with us, right, we always start with the content first. For example, in special special events, the really cool character or the really cool levels that come up will be very time limited. So it could be as short as half an hour or an hour, just to force people to beat that event, right? And if they cannot beat an event, the time is running out, you're putting a lot of pressure on them, and they wouldn't get this character for a very long time. then they will realize that this value is going up immediately. So this is just another way that we could convert user in a time-limited event. Also, if we realize that, okay, they've been in the game for 3 days and they have not spent any money on us, they are unlikely to spend anything. Usually we are able to convert them within 2 hours if they're going to pay us anything. So if they've been in the game for that long and we have not been able to convert them, and we really push with all the characters and special thing already, then promotion might start to make sense. But yeah, because you don't want to be bombarding them all the time because they're just not going to open up their wallet.
We have 1 minute, so anybody else?
Okay, I'll just share from HotelQuickly experience. It's something that we're experimenting, and I do believe that if a user keeps getting bombarded with like a promotion every other week, the fatigue is gonna kick in because they know that you guys are gonna run like another percentage discount 2 weeks from now. I'm not gonna do the booking now. But from the HotelQuickly experience itself, we're still experimenting and see, okay, what's the level we can sort of go with. Currently, I think we do run targeted promotions once every month, just to see how does it kick in itself. But then I think where sort of this flashes or promotion that could be really useful is that, especially when a user drops out of the cart itself, that's where I think it would be interesting to actually send like a discount to say, hey, you know, this is like a quick 10% discount for you to complete the purchase itself. I think that could be really useful. Yeah.
Okay, we are finished right on time. So this was very insightful, at least for me. I learned a few things. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our panelists. We do have a wireless microphone, so if anyone would like to ask any questions, please feel free to raise your hand.
Q&A. Any question? Yeah.
Well, the push notification sounds a good idea, but surely I think different users would react differently. Say, if you send them a discount code, some would reuse your app, and you may measure that as a success. But of course, some may get annoyed and uninstall your app. So how do you balance between the utilizer and the people who don't like it and just uninstall? How do you balance the measurement?
It's an interesting question, actually. So how do you actually balance like the people who might potentially uninstall itself? I think we base it on the potential uplift of the campaign when we actually run this off like push promotion, 10% discount, 20% discount, that, okay, so based on this campaign, how many people uninstall versus how many people who actually make that booking itself. But then we're also looking into a deeper segmentation itself, whereby we know that through our automation tool, we know that these guys have not came back to the app for a very long time. They only open once in the whole lifetime itself. We know that. So that's why we throw them a completely different kind of message and see, you know, what actually kicks off to bring them back into the funnel. So I think it's depending on where the journey is at. Like, promotions are great for the engaged users who open the app, like, you know, twice, more than 2 times in a 2 weeks frame itself. But for users who only open one, that's where we would try to sort of try to just remind them what the app is about, and then bring them back into the engaged funnel itself. Yeah.
That's a very good tip. Thank you.
Any other question?
I can add to the first one.
Okay.
So for us, since it's a freemium model, so essentially more than 95% of people never pay, it really doesn't make sense for us to even show them an offer, because most people are just not interested in purchasing. So what we do instead is we focus on giving them the benefit, which is free currency or some kind of a free perk to bring them in. And then once they're inside the game, then we segment payers and show them an offer, because they've paid before, so they're likely to pay again. And then for non-payers, we either show an event or unlock a new game. So it's for us, it doesn't make sense to show offers at discounts in push at all.
Okay, then. Thank you once again to our panelists. And could I invite to the stage Mercy Livingston of GMASA to present tokens of appreciation.